Peace and all good from Franciscan Media. I'm Father Jim Sabak, and this is the Inbreaking of the Word. So this past weekend, we have just completed the second of the idea feasts that follow the conclusion of the Easter season. Again, these idea feasts are not meant to be something separate from what we celebrated at Easter. We do not move from Easter back into another time period, which is very long, of the summer and fall ordinary time. That makes us think again about how horrible we are as people, how great sinners we are as human beings, and all kinds of things like that, because that doesn't get us anywhere, and that would make a mockery of everything that Easter is. No, these idea feasts follow the conclusion of the Easter season because they are supposed to keep us constantly reflecting upon what Easter has done for us. And again, this is the whole thing. What Easter has done for us, it continues to do something for us. It is not just a moment in the calendar where, we just are happy for a while to go back into being sad. That is ridiculous and absurd. Like I keep saying, this is not what the gospel ever says us to do. This is not what we are about. Although we as a church so many times want to make sure that we are, contrite and sad and, sin and sin and sin and sin. And again, sometimes we do that because it seems in a weird way to keep the priests busy. It gives them something to do and hearing confession after confession after confession. And that is not our job primarily. Our job primarily is to guide people into the wonder and beauty of God and of this creation around us and of who we are as creations of God. And so we come to the solemnity of the body and blood of Christ, formerly called Corpus Christi, formerly called basically only solemnity of the body of Christ. But again, it's Christ's body and blood. And when we moved in the reforms of the Second Vatican Council, liturgical forms of the Second Vatican Council, into offering the cup, the chalice, to the assembly, as we always should have, but it got taken away about the year 900 or whatever it was. We show the connection between the two. And falling back onto this whole idea, well, in a host you get both body and blood. That's a cop out. It's not how it's supposed to work. It's not how it's supposed to work. Again, getting over the fear of spillage, getting over the fear of people, receiving from the same cup, all those kinds of things allows us to receive in fullness what it is that Christ gives to us. And that's the whole point of the second reading from 1 Corinthians today, is that Paul recounts again what Jesus does on the night before he is arrested and then crucified. Is that he shares a meal with bread and with wine, and gives this cup, this covenantal cup, this cup that always has more words over it than the host does, to show again our linking not only to Christ and to God, but to each other. Because whereas everybody gets their own individual hosts, we are asked to share out of a similar cup, the same cup. Many cups, yes, because our congregations are so big, but the whole idea is that there's not a cup for everybody. We all share in it, because basically what we're doing is pledging a solidarity with that one who I may not know, who receives before me. I will not be in fear of this person. And this tremendously intimate, very human, very natural sort of thing as to take a drink from a cup that somebody else has drunk from is something that doesn't always pass well within our society and culture, because we're so concerned about sickness or disease, or wanting to make sure that we ourselves are saved, and hopefully then everybody else is too. Sharing the cup means, again, my survival depends upon your survival. And if I don't focus upon that, then I am not living up to my reality and my truth as a believer in this world. And I'm not being that person, that God needs me to be in this world as a believer. And so this idea feast, again, to celebrate that which we receive at every Eucharist, whether it be weekly or daily or whatever it is, that which we receive. And the whole point of it is to receive it, is not to gaze upon it. As much as we might, again, find some kind of consolation or some kind of, a sense of peace or calm with adoration and benediction, Jesus never ever says that is the primary understanding of what it means, to utilize this great gift of the Eucharist. The Eucharist is meant to be eaten and drunk. If it is not eaten and drunk, it cannot do its purpose. It cannot do its purpose, because its purpose basically is to allow us to become like Christ. And looking at Christ is not enough. Looking at anything is not enough. We must engage with it in a very radical, dynamic, intimate, ridiculous, and absurd kind of way by eating and drinking him. Now, this does not go back, this is not a repeat. Not doesn't go back. It doesn't repeat what happens on Holy Thursday. This Holy Thursday is something different. Holy Thursday is telling us that this is what Jesus asked us to do, and to remember the fact that we are supposed to do just that. To bless bread, to bless wine, to remember that it is Christ's body and blood, and then to eat and to drink it. This feast, this solemnity of the body and blood of Christ, is asking us to think about what happens when we do. what happens when we do eat and drink him. Now, too many, for centuries, basically our whole church has been based upon making sure that you eat and drink Christ because hopefully you'll get into heaven, because you can show St. Peter a full body filled with, the blood, the body of Christ. I mean, not the blood of Christ, but the body of Christ, which again, is as absurd as that sounds, it's absurd. That's not what this was ever about, is trying to eat and drink him to get off this horrible rock of a planet. It was basically to eat and drink him to become him in this world in which we live, in this world in which we reside, in this world in which we witness who and what we are as believers in this world. And so that's why today's gospel from Luke, again, in this year of Matthew, we hear from Luke, because Luke's, again, understanding of the feeding of the 5,000 shows us just exactly what this eating and drinking of this bread and wine is supposed to do, is to give us what it is that we need to be satisfied, to satisfy our basic needs of wanting to find hope and peace and serenity and calm and love and forgiveness and mercy and wonder and beauty. Eating and drinking this Christ is supposed to give us that, give us eyes to see that, a heart to feel that, a love that is able to share that with others who are in desperate need of understanding that this is the kind of God who is in our midst. Again, to eat and to drink him, to eat and to drink him, not to gaze and stare upon him. Jesus never says for us to do that. It becomes something that is left up to us to do because basically the eating and drinking is removed from us. And again, the church does that, unfortunately. The church does that with a very misguided understanding of what it means to eat and drink. And now they scramble to get it back into us. But already, sometimes we've gone too far afield with just satisfying ourselves with being able to gaze and adore. We don't need to do that. We need to gaze and adore the Christ that is within us, to gaze and adore the Christ that says, I want you to be a part of me, and I want to be a part of you so bad. I will enter into you in such a dynamic, intimate way that no other God or goddess has ever done so. Because ours is a God of life. Ours is the God of gods. Ours is the one whom we call Mighty Counselor, Powerful Lord, Prince of Peace, King forever, Mighty God. That is our God, who wants to share his life, her life, with us, this God of wonder and beauty. And this day is asking us to remember that, but then also to remember what it means to share within this body and this blood of this Christ. Again, something, that is foreshadowed in what Melchizedek does in that first reading from Genesis of sharing just bread and wine to show our connectedness to what God gives us and to be a part of this life that God gives us. But now with this gospel reading from Luke of the feeding of the 5,000, it's basically this understanding of what can we give to each other, so that each other are nurtured, so that each other live, so that each other find their value and their dignity and worth in this world. That is the purpose of our eating and drinking, the purpose of this body and blood, the purpose of coming together for Eucharist, to be thankful to God who gives us this great gift of becoming like him, and then to live out that great gift in being him in this world. Peace and all good, again from Franciscan Media. May the Lord give you his peace.